The best way to hide the truth is between two lies. And that's exactly what's going on right now with this drone nonsense, the orbs, the plasmoids. I'm going to explain in detail what truths exist and which lies are being told to cover them up. And I'm going to prove my thesis with the first sergeant's story. Shout out to Miss Stormy for sending it in. Give it a listen, and then I'll explain. Please do not use my real name. Stormy is what I go by and find to use. I was a loud baby, LOL. In order to keep this email manageable, I'm only sharing the most impactful experiences to keep this as short as possible. Please feel free to read it as you see fit. I'm a 22-year retired first sergeant in the Army Military Police Corps. I excelled as a female because my DNA is that of an elite athlete. Thanks, Granddad and Dad. I got the athletic award at First Sergeant course amongst mostly males from all MOSs at the male standard max scores. Hoo-ah, First Sergeant. I also outran the Honolulu SWAT team on a 50-mile run for Special Olympics while calling cadence most of the time. I'm not bragging, just saying I have been different my entire life, and just now connecting the dots thanks to your channel and the brave folks who submit their stories. I have disregarded so much of my life experiences in the UFO, orb, abduction realm until I saw your recent videos. I was born in 1964 with hazel eyes that have orange around the pupils. Every ophthalmologist I have seen has complimented how beautifully strange my eyes are. I entered the Army Military Police Corps in 1982, and I retired in 2004 as a first sergeant. FYI, for those of you who are not familiar with military rank, there's only one more enlisted rank above first sergeant. That would be sergeant major. This is amazing. I never got close to what this lady did in her military career in mine. My first experience was at the age of 4 at my grandparents' house in upstate New York. My grandmother was doing dishes and the family was keeping her company in the kitchen. Being summer, the windows over the sink were open. Suddenly, a fiery bright orb the size of a basketball appeared in front of the kitchen window. We all froze as it effortlessly came through the screen without damaging it. It silently floated around the kitchen, and although it looked like a ball of fire, there was no heat. It's a common thread coming up here lately in these videos. I myself had a similar experience, as you'll remember. Not in the house, but right back here. After about 45 seconds of slowly drifting around the kitchen while we were frozen in place like statues, the orb simply went back out the window and disappeared. After retiring in 2004, I moved to Ohio, where I had my first sleep paralysis experience. Another common thread, folks. I dislike this title because it truly felt like a lot more than that. I was asleep, and at approximately 2 a.m., I woke to hear a mechanical type humming sound and could feel the vibration in my body. I was facing the wall on my side and realized that the only thing I could move were my eyes. From the light of the streetlights coming in my bedroom, I could see my left hand, but no matter how hard I tried or thought, I couldn't move even my thumb. At that moment, I felt a bad presence behind me, but I couldn't turn over to face this being. The vibration sound started getting louder and fluctuating up and down as my fight or flight response went into overdrive because it felt like an attack. In my mind, I gathered every bit of hurt, fear, anger, pain, and warrior survival into a ball. Everything went into it. As I was still unable to move, in my mind, I suddenly spun around to fight the presence, screaming, "Come on!" as I unleashed my ball of fury in what truly felt like a fight for my life and soul. A fraction of a second later, I could move and the sound was gone. I bought property up a dirt road on a mountain in southern Oregon in 2011, and things got crazier. My best friend from the area moved in, and we both noticed periods of absolute silence at night that sometimes would go on for weeks. No tree frogs, crickets, cicadas, or night bird sounds. Silence on summer nights despite having to gather dozens of tree frogs in buckets during the day before mowing the yard. Then we noticed small blue orbs randomly flit through the trees surrounding my house, which still happens. In the fall of 2018, my roommate took her dad 4.5 hours away to Eastern Oregon for a family gathering. I fell asleep on the couch in the living room, which is where the sliding door leads to the fenced backyard. At about 2 a.m., I heard my 2 dogs whining, which is odd because my bigger dog usually wakes me up with a nose wet willy in whatever ear is available. My first thought was that she must really have to go potty now. I got up and in one motion turned on the back deck light, slid the door open, and stepped out onto the deck. I instantly froze. Directly in front of me on the other side of my fence, in the shadow of a large cedar tree, were 3 sets of glowing eyes, side by side, just out of the reach of my deck light. The eyes were not only huge and glowing, but each set ranged from 6 feet above the ground to 7 feet, and the tallest about 9 feet above the ground. I could tell that these 3 things were massive. I said out loud, "Please don't hurt me and I won't hurt you," as I took a step backwards. All 3 took a step back. I took another step back and so did they. I took my final step back into the house, quietly slid the door closed, and turned off the light. Suddenly, I remembered the dogs and turned to see them both on the couch looking at me like, "Are you crazy? We were warning you not to go outside." Although confused about what happened, I laid back down on the couch and fell immediately to sleep. Oddly, even though I haven't slept past 5 a.m. since I retired, no matter how hard I tried, the dogs and I woke up around 8 a.m. The entire experience lasted less than 30 seconds, but it felt like an hour. This past year, due to an incomplete spinal cord injury, C4 and C6, or C4 through C6, don't want to forget about that C5, that's the one I have chronically inflamed from my time in service, which caused me to retire from the Army, I was sent to have an MRI to figure out what is causing my generalized dystonia. I was slid in the machine in the initial scan without magnets to ensure I didn't have metal in me that would be dangerous in an MRI. About 5 minutes in, the machine stopped and the technician asked me if I ever had surgery on or near my left kidney. I said no, but I do have 3 plates and a bunch of screws in my back. Someone's getting jealous for attention. I have 3 plates and a bunch of screws in my neck, rather, not back. I've had dozens of MRIs since then with no problems. The technician got me out and actually showed me what he was seeing. He showed me my artifact, she puts in quotes. It was a 1/4 of an inch long, almost 1/8 of an inch wide, metallic, and floating in my body near my left kidney. It's an implant, folks. I told him I have no clue why it was there and that even recent x-rays within the last 3 years would have covered that area and did not show this artifact. It took over an hour of high-level doctors to decide if I could complete the MRI. They said I could, but at a reduced magnetic level because they couldn't tell if it would be responsive to the MRI magnetism. I completed the MRI with major pucker factor and no problems with the artifact that proved to be non-magnetic. My doctor called me 4 days later to discuss the results. I asked her what she thought of my artifact. My doctor's reply rendered me speechless. She said, "There is no mention of it." I told her that it was a significant situation that required 3 levels of leadership to decide if I could even go through with the MRI. She replied, quote, "There's nothing in the report about it," end quote. I apologized for the length, but made it as short as possible using the most impactful incidents. Thank you so much for providing a safe place for folks to tell their stories. Sincerely, Stormy, 1st Sergeant retired, U.S. Army MP Corps. First Sergeant, thank you for your story. I started this video by making the statement, the best way to hide the truth is between 2 lies. I full-heartedly believe that's exactly what's going on here right now. Now, what is the truth that's being hidden? It's stories like First Sergeant Story's Stormy, that I wholeheartedly 100% believe to be true and factual. So what are the lies, and why are they being used as, viewed as a sandwich? Lie, truth, lie. I'm going to tell you what I believe the lies are, what I believe is the truth behind these lies being told in the first place. And I'm going to give you a historic example that you can Google and look up yourself. Most of you will probably know this story to confirm my beliefs. So many of you have said I should watch the show Fly on the Wall with Dana Carvey and the other guy. Gosh, it's slipping my mind. He's one of my favorite actors. Funny guy. He was in Tommy Boy. I just watched it last night, and it had the doctor on it who you said I should listen to, Dr. Stephen Greer. So I listened to that, and I believed everything he said, but I think he's wrong in one aspect. So do I believe that there are rogue military / corporate military bases out there doing terrible things to innocent people? Absolutely. I spent too much time in the military. I deployed to combat zones. I've seen enough to know that yes. And anybody who doesn't believe that clearly doesn't have a whole lot of real world experiences. And I'll leave it at that. I don't want to be insulting, but let me tell you, when you've been around the block a few times, and to me the block means the world, you see things, you witness things that you thought you'd only read about in fictitious novels or see on science fiction movies, but you find out these things are true. Now, here's the part where I think Dr. Greer is getting it wrong, and I think here's the part where a lot of folks are getting it wrong, and this isn't about me being right. It's not my goal to be right. Listen, I learned years ago, once again, I haven't fed the birds yet this morning. These birds, these guys are taken care of, but the wild birds, they chase me down and scream at me if I haven't given their seed yet. But anyway, thanks, birds. It'll come back. Right. I learned years ago, I had to replace the ink in my printer today. That's what that's all about. I learned years ago that we can be right or we can be happy. I chose, after years of wanting to be right, after wanting to prove my point, to be happy. Because there's less anxiety involved with it, there's less stress, there's more peace in choosing to just be happy. So we're hearing from Dr. Greer, and we're hearing from other folks, some folks who sent me emails that I've read in the last week to really get this thing kicked off, that there is going to be this false flag operation involving these drones, these orbs, UFOs. Dr. Greer said in the interview that I think he said 90% of these things are man-made. They're made by the defense manufacturers. Totally believe it. But then he also said a smaller percentage is extraterrestrial. Totally believe that too, and that's part of the truth they're trying to hide. So the theory, the going theory is, and a lot of people are angry about this, and I stand to lose a ton of followers by giving you my honest view here, but at the same time, the reason I've gained any of you is because I've always been brutally honest. There's a theory that there's going to be this massive false flag operation just before the upcoming inauguration day of January 20, 2025, to make sure the transition of power does not take place. The theory is stating that things will be so terrible, it'll seem so terrible, that martial law will be implemented so that the current administration has reason to remain in power. It's not going to happen. My take on it is this. There will be a peaceful transition of power on Inauguration Day, January 20. Donald J. Trump will once again be sworn as president, and he's going to take control from there. There will be no alien invasion. There will be no false flag, secret squirrel government agency, false flag invasion. It's not going to happen. It's by design. They are covering up a false flag with a false flag. The false flag being the expectations that this will happen. That's part of the lie, and that's how they're burying the truth. So they're coming out. The first lie is that we don't know what these things are. Everybody's seen these orbs and these drones all over the world. We're getting letters yesterday. We read one from South Africa. They're coming in from Brazil. We're getting them from England and other parts of Europe. They're coming in from Asia. It's not just New Jersey and the eastern U.S. They're coming in from everywhere. So the world is knowledgeable of this, and the lie we're being told is we don't know what's going on. The people who are claiming not to know, I agree with Dr. Greer, are the ones behind it. The truth is, or rather plural, the truths are stories like the first sergeant's. 100% true. Lie, truth, lie. The other lie is that expectation of this false flag event that's not going to happen. And again, you can come, if it happens, you can come back here after upcoming President Trump is inaugurated and tell me I was wrong. It's not going to happen. But again, it's not about me being right. Okay? So we don't know what's going on. These stories of abductions and people seeing things and having these experiences is true. Then the next lie is there's going to be a false flag event. Well, what happens when it doesn't take place? Why would they do this? You're saying Crazy Lake, this is why everybody called you crazy. No, I'm able to connect the dots, and I've seen it too many times. What happens when everybody gets their expectations up about something, and then that something doesn't happen? Everybody gives up all hope and belief in whatever it was they had their expectations up about. So the first sergeant just shared this story with us, like the scores of folks who have been sharing their stories with us. And I'm going to bring you another story this evening, 8 p.m. Eastern time, because there's just too many. I'm not going to be able to get to them all if I don't do this twice a day. These folks have been laughed at, ridiculed, abused, fired from their jobs. Got a really sad story about a woman who's been estranged from her family because she's talking about aliens and UFOs. She's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Hey, let's stay away from her. Don't let the grandkids around her. But now suddenly, since people everywhere are seeing these things, these people are being believed, right? So that raises our expectations that, oh my gosh, there are aliens. We have been visited. They're here. We're getting ready to see them, right? Well, then what happens when this false flag doesn't take place? All those expectations, all those people who finally are willing to believe the folks this has happened to, it's all going to dissipate again. They're going to say, oh my gosh, we've been had, like it says in the title here. It was all fake from the first place. Why were we dumb enough to believe these people are coming to Crazy Lake's channel, homesteading off the grid and sharing his experiences? He's just entertaining lunatics. He's a lunatic. That's exactly why they're doing it. That's my theory. That's my take. Do I believe these rogue secret organizations are out there literally murdering people? Yes. Do I believe we are not alone and that we have been and probably are currently being visited, if not occupied to certain degrees? Yes. Are they, the powers that be, ever going to own up? No. Because it's about control. It's all about control through fear. Here's my historic example I'm going to use, and I'm going to leave it at this. If you'll remember, and there's a great movie that came out in 2019 based upon this. It's called The Current War. It's about the battle between Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla with currents. And I wrote it down because sometimes I speak out of turn, and electricity is something I'm not too knowledgeable on. Edison was promoting DC current, and Tesla was promoting AC current. Tesla's idea was to give the entire world free electricity. He wanted to leave a legacy. He didn't want to just be remembered. And there's a scene in that movie where the CEO or the owner of Westinghouse Corporation said, hey, if you want to be easy or if you want to be remembered, that's easy. And then he talks about assassinating a certain powerful person. And I can't even say those words on social media or I'll get flagged. But he said, if you want to leave a legacy, change the world. Edison was trying to be known. He was an extreme narcissist, wanted his name on everything. Nikola Tesla wanted to help the world. Well, Thomas Edison realized there was only one way he could win this current war, to get DC out there, because he was being banked by the big bankers, J.P. Morgan, all these guys up in Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon, Mellon and Carnegie. My 5K first sergeant, best time is 16:20, and I ran it on the track at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, sophomore year of college. They were backing Edison. There was so much money as long as Edison made sure that DC current was the system that everybody used. Well, AC current and Nikola Tesla, it was really getting traction. People wanted that. They liked the idea of free. They liked the idea of everybody having the basic benefit and luxury of electricity. And folks, I've spent 10 years in third world countries. Where I was this time last winter, there still was no electricity, okay? In southern Mindanao, in the Philippines. So what did Thomas Edison do to finally win that current war? One of the things he attempted and it worked, was he was a charlatan. He defrauded the public and he used fear. I wrote it down. There was an elephant, you'll remember, named, this is weird, Topsy the elephant. So Edison resorted to a last-ditch effort to make sure to control the people through fear. He scared everybody away from Tesla and his AC current by electrocuting an innocent animal, an animal named Topsy the elephant. She was an Asian elephant, said to have been the first elephant born in America. That's up for discussion. There's no proof of that. But anyway, they hooked her up to DC current. Yep, I've got that right. And they electrocuted her. Or no, I'm sorry. They hooked her up to AC current, the current of choice by Tesla. They electrocuted her to prove his point. He misused the technology. He didn't use the technology correctly. He used it in such a way that, yeah, if you use it that way, it is deadly. But guess what? So's DC current. Everybody knows not to go around sticking your fingers in light sockets. That's why we have these little child-proof things if we got toddlers or babies in a house that goes in the plug so they can't stick spoons and forks in there. Anything, no matter how harmless, if misused, can kill you. That's common sense. And that's why people who don't have common sense make the dumb list. You know, they call it natural selection. Okay. Even cell phones, content creators trying to get selfies off the top of a cliff with a 500-foot drop and a beautiful waterfall underneath them. How many times a year, sadly, do people fall to their deaths trying to get that one picture that's going to go viral? So that's exactly what's going on here today. They're trying to scare us, and it's to control the way we think, in that when people like the first sergeant comes out, when all the folks who've been sending their stories come out with their stories, nobody will believe it. Because what's going on right now, this build up to this false flag event that's not going to happen, will discredit any story anybody will ever tell. The best way to hide the truth is between two lies. Lie, truth, lie. Well, folks, you've got a safe space here. We will continue to tell your truths. After this false flag event does not happen, after upcoming President Trump is sworn into office and the world continues to go round, and everybody gives up all hope or belief that any of this was possible, and they start calling you cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs again, you come right back here and you send me those stories. Because after that, after Inauguration Day, we will continue to get the truth out there. I will be your voice. I will tell the stories you can't tell because you're the one who will suffer. I don't care. I ain't scared. Send me your stories, crazylake@mail.com. See you for more next time.